Hi, part 2 of Immaculate Self-Care, and this is mapping our self-care system. So what we're doing is we're asking ourselves questions to identify what's going on with us and what it is that we need so that we can implement solutions to help ourselves and support our life stream in this embodiment. So basic questions are good to start with. For instance, halt. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? So those are very, very simple questions to ask ourselves to sort of check in with ourselves about where we're at. If we're feeling depleted in any way, that's a good way to check in. Oh wow, yeah, my blood sugar's low. I need some food or some protein or some kind of liquid. Am I thirsty? You know, what's happening there to support me in feeling back in balance. And then angry. Am I upset about something? Like, what's going on? And stopping and dealing directly with that. So why am I angry? Like, what's going on there? Why am I all of a sudden am I angry? Like, what's the trigger about, right? And I was talking about that in the first video where we ask and identify, what is it that's triggering me in this moment? And then we stop and we take a moment to work at bringing that back around into balance so that we are staying grounded and centered, because that's really, important in terms of staying in our full embodiment and our full power. So then also lonely. Am I feeling lonely? Do I need to, schedule some social events? What am I feeling like? Am I isolating myself? That's a good question, because a lot of times when we feel lonely, what we will do is one of two things. One, we'll go running after something, right, to fill a need, and that is what I call horizontal harvesting, which isn't necessarily the healthiest dynamic for us. Or, am I lonely and I can actually implement some solutions like go to a yoga class, or, invite a friend over to have dinner, make a dinner with my friend. Like anything that will bring a solution to the feeling of loneliness. And a lot of times though, also feeling lonely is actually about the fact that you're not taking care of yourself, right? And it gives us that opportunity to really check in is, how am I not taking care of myself if I'm feeling lonely because I feel separate from myself? Whereas when you feel grounded and centered, you're sort of with your embodiment, with your soul, with your essence, and you don't feel lonely. It's not a natural state. So that's really important to check in about what exactly is going on. Am I not supporting myself? Because that can make you feel lonely very quickly. And then, am I tired? Have I run myself into the ground, right? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating properly? Am I active in my addictions, right? So your addictions can be anything from Netflix to chocolate to gossip, to, which I don't recommend, obviously, but it can be very damaging to our bodies and exhausting. Am I engaging in negativity? Is another really good question for that. So how is my body tired? Did I just max myself out this week? Did I just not get enough sleep every night? And what did I do to get to where I am right now? And to really check in with ourselves so that we can maintain this balance, right? That to me is the most important thing, is to remain balanced. And it's in this world that we're living in today, it is actually necessary for us to do this. In my opinion, it's not easy to live in this world. We are constantly being bombarded with energetic bombardment, whether it be visuals from ads for impulse buys or television. I don't watch television personally, but I know that on television they're like, talk to your doctor, and the constant mind control being implemented into our physical personal lives through television, through the internet, and through all these ways that the powers that run this world would like us to steer our attention. And that is being used for energy harvesting purposes for their benefit, not for our own, but for theirs. So we want to be paying attention to how our energy is being harvested from us. Are we giving our power away to these things? Are we engaging in something, in a distraction, if you will, rather than something positive that would allow us to be truly tired, right? From, being exhausted from taking a nice hike in nature, that type of a thing. So, the next question we can ask ourselves is, when we're feeling out of sorts, when was the last time I was in nature? I was just talking about that. And how do we go about getting ourselves into nature, even if we're just putting our bare feet on the grass? I mean, literally, if we just lay down on the grass for 5 minutes, it will literally shift our piezoelectric, magnetic electric dynamic within our energy bodies, and it will bring us back grounded into our bodies. So that's a very simple way to ground and center that we can utilize when we're out and about or whatever. We can just find a piece of grass, And a lot of times, if you live in a city, that's not really possible, but there may be a tree on the sidewalk, and I would just walk up to the tree and stand there and hold it, whatever it takes to get ourselves in the conductive field, right, of that vertical alignment so that we can tap into nature and be able to feel the magnetic piezoelectric energy of the earth in our bodies. So that is a key element to staying grounded and feeling centered and not feeling lonely, because when we've got Gaia underneath our feet and she's available to us 24/7, when we tap into that energy and this massive, beautiful essence that she is, it gives us an opportunity to step out of the mind and bring ourselves into our heart and to resonate at the heart space, because that's where Gaia lives, is in the heart. So that is one way also to do this. The next question would be, this is going to be funny. When was the last time I did nothing? When was the last time I sat literally and did nothing and just relaxed, knowing and just be, knowing that I don't have to do anything, that I don't have to be anywhere, that I don't have to show up and be pulled in this direction or that. When was the last time I just sat there doing nothing and just hung out, or did a piece of artwork to balance the right and left hemispheres of my brain, So tuning in with ourselves and making a point to take time to relax. We don't have to do anything. We literally can take time for ourselves to drop in and to just come back. I call it grounding out. So I will take time after a session or take time after I've been out in the world. I will go internal. I will go into my room and I will just sit there. And I won't do anything else, and I'll just come back into my body when I've been sort of maxed out energetically and my central nervous system feels sensitive. I will make a point of going the opposite direction and grounding super deep so that I feel present and available for what's next. So that's a huge question to ask ourselves. Are we letting ourselves relax, right? Exercise. Another thing that we can apply to our lives. Am I getting enough exercise? Am I taking care of myself physically? Is my flesh body temple receiving the support that it needs to function well on a daily basis? For me, that, sweat, the circulation in our blood is really important. And because we have a peripheral and a central nervous system, both are being affected by our environment and by our activities. So when we exercise, that gives us an opportunity to bring those back together and to ground those. And also it helps the movement of the body, helps us to come back into our center and to find our center where that is. Okay, so it's a bodily function that's actually required of us on some level to stay grounded on the earth plane. And that, also exercise allows us to release toxins out of our bloodstream and to sweat them out. And so that whole functioning process is actually necessary for our embodiment, so for us to stay clear and clean and to not build up too many toxins. And that could be happening through our belly. And so we have 3 brains. We have our belly, our gut brain, we have our heart brain, and we have our mind. So there's 3 different functioning brains within our bodies that we need to be fully present to. And when our stomach is full of toxins and our digestive system is sluggish and it's not functioning properly, it actually affects our thinking, and our hypothalamus glands and our pituitary gland and our pineal gland are all affected. The whole glandular system can become fatigued, and then our adrenals and our brain are not communicating with each other based on the buildup of toxins or of us expending too much energy and not allowing ourselves to rest and rebuild. So finding that ebb and flow and that balance is really, really important. And that's part of mapping our self-care system out, is to know when you are coming on the verge of that, when you feel your body and you're like, oh, I'm getting there. Maybe I should, back it up a bit so that I can take care of myself and not get myself into trouble with my energy resources, and because I'm depleting myself, right? So really paying attention to how much energy we are expending in a given moment. And then breathing. So exercise could be yoga, it could be stretching, it could be meditating even, because meditating also releases toxins. It allows for the mind to rest. It does a lot of things other than just sitting still. And so it can be a form of exercise. But it is also important for our bodies to move. So doing a movement practice where we can meditate within that movement can also, if we're not somebody who can sit still, that can also be very effective. And a lot of women actually find it difficult to sit still for too long, and that they feel that the movement meditations are actually easier for them. So that's another thing to remember. And then breathing. Are we breathing? Are we holding our breath? A lot of times people hold their breath because they feel like they're so tense and they're in their mind that they're not dropping down and experiencing like really getting into the body. So when we hold our breath, a lot of times we will leave the body and we won't be present in the body. We'll kind of disassociate a little bit. And so that can be very, not productive to our reality if we're dissociating because we're not breathing, or we're holding our breath because we don't know what's next, or there's all kinds of reasons why we hold our breath, but it's also a PTSD symptom. So it's something that I learned through my process, that I was holding my breath, and it was based on my PTSD, not on my reality, and it was fear-based. And so when I was able to identify what my fears were that I was experiencing, then I was able to breathe into them and to allow them to release and look at them and say, are those rational or irrational fears? Like, what's really going on here? And asking myself those questions so that I had a full understanding of what was really going on with me in any given moment. And then I can breathe, Okay, now I know what's going on, right? So that's a way to nourish ourselves by asking those questions and then being able to breathe into all of those places within us where we've been holding and contracting based on fear or thought forms or anything related to that. So if we find ourselves self-medicating, for example, that's a good sign like with sugar or addictions of any kind, that could be that there's a pressure buildup happening within you. And so we need to check in with ourselves in those moments and find out what's really going on. Where's this pressure coming from? Why am I going towards self-medication with sugar or food or sex or addictions of any kind? Why am I self-medicating? What's going on that's causing that? Because nourishing ourselves is actually the natural state of well-being. Our natural state of well-being is bliss. And so naturally we would love to nourish ourselves while we're in that state of bliss. But when we come out of that state of bliss, it's usually because of our environment and because we have old programs running in us that are constantly repeating themselves, telling us that we're not good enough, or that, we keep abandoning ourselves in relationships. So we are doing our best to become aware of what it is that we're doing to abandon ourselves in any given moment, so that we don't need to repeat those patterns and we can actually identify them and remove them, right? So our bodies, our central nervous systems can get maxed out. I call that sensory overload. And what happens when that happens is there's a max out point, and then we become so saturated that there's no way that we can take any information in, right? When we get to that point is usually when PTSD gets triggered and it starts to spiral out. So if we feel and sense the sensory overload coming on, we immediately pay attention to that and to be fully present in the now moment and observe and recognize what it is that we are doing in that moment that is creating that, or up until that point, what has created that situation. And we ask ourselves, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? How did I get here, right? How did I get to this place? And what is it that I need to do to support myself coming back into center? So with that, I am complete with part 2, and I will see you in part 3.